In this episode, we talk about India's first CAR T-cell therapy, which is a novel cancer treatment. We also talk about Israel launching one of the biggest assaults on the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire on 19th of January. But first, we talk about an Indian PhD scholar in the US whose F1 visa was revoked. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Last week, Ranjini Srinivasan, an Indian PhD scholar at Columbia University in the US, had her F1 student visa revoked for allegedly advocating for violence and terrorism and supporting Hamas. Now fearing action by the authorities, she chose to self-deport and return home. Her exit follows an increasing crackdown by the Trump administration on foreign nationals who were involved in last year's pro-Palestinian demonstrations.
We will be victorious! We'll be victorious! All our people will be free! We want justice, you say how? We want justice, you say how? Revoked now!
In this segment, my colleague Shashank Bhargav speaks to the Indian Express's Divya A, where she talks about the crackdown on these protesters and what US authorities are hoping for.
Divya, Ranjini, we understand, was a doctoral student in urban planning at the university. Can you tell us what were the exact reasons given by the authorities to revoke her student visa?
See, we don't have the exact charges that were given by the authority, but broadly there was a crackdown on those who participated in the pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University and other campuses in the US in the spring of last year. And that is where this entire crackdown is coming from. So she was on a student visa, which is the F1 visa, and she got a notice that her visa was revoked for advocating violence and terrorism and that she supported Hamas, a terrorist organization. So that is the entire scenario, how it started. And I think a day later, when she got that notice and her visa was revoked, she chose to leave the country by using the self-deport feature rather than, facing any kind of other action by the authorities.
And the protests that happened last spring, they took place across universities in the US. How prominent were they at Columbia?
Columbia, in a sense, had become like an epicenter of these protests at the time in the spring of 2024. It started a little bit after the October 7, the Hamas attack and the consequent Israeli aggression. And as Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said recently that their charges basically are that this was intimidating for the Jewish students on campus. And even despite paying a hefty fee and, being on the campus, they were not able to attend classes and they faced harassment. So this is the entire, scenario where this anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian protesters, even though as students they were free to express themselves, but what is being seen as that it tantamount to harassment. Obviously, also the protests were seen as obstructing public life and traffic. In fact, this is the third case at Columbia in the last 1 week. It started with, ethnic Palestinian person called Mahmoud Khalil, who was also arrested, although he's a green card holder and he's married to a US citizen. Then we had another Columbia student who got a notice and who is apparently arrested or detained. And then Ranjini's case became the third such case. And Rubio has said that there will be more. Yeah.
And Divya, these protests, of course, had started during the Biden administration. Was any action taken back then?
No. In fact, it was during Trump's campaign speeches also that he had said that it's clear to him that Israeli students and Jewish students cannot be harassed in the US. And, in the name of political activism, he will not tolerate any kind of intimidation.
But when you see that video of raging lunatics and Hamas sympathizers at Columbia and other colleges, but when you look at it, I say, where did these people come from? I don't know people like that. I mean, I deal with a lot of people. Where do they come from? But it's a shame. And Biden should speak out. He should speak out. He should say something because Nobody knows.
So that is what it came from. Obviously, there are always two sides to a story. There are advocates of free speech. And we also read, Ranjini's lawyer talking to Washington Post and saying that the charges are not clear and the charges do not even hold and that it's mere a concocted charge sheet. We also read Ranjini speaking to one of the foreign publications, to New York Times yesterday, where she said the atmosphere was so volatile and dangerous. So she made a quick decision to kind of leave in a jiffy a day after her visa was revoked. Also that as soon as Trump took office on January 20th, he had said that he is going to do like a major crackdown on campus protests. And how campuses are becoming hotbeds of, this kind of harassment for other section of student or the other side of students, and that they will not take any kind of anti-Semitism, which is what this is being termed as. So this entire immigration and, this tight control on political speeches on campuses is being taken very strictly. In fact, Columbia's funding is also now on, under the scanner, and there's been a bit of a threat that, the funding may be stopped. So yeah, that is, Columbia is really under the scanner.
And you mentioned how Ranjini decided to self-deport. Now, if she had stayed back, is there a sense that she could have faced action?
She could have, as we spoke to some immigration lawyers and experts on the day that, this came to light that she self-deported. It could have led to some action because, technically, if your visa is revoked, you are no longer entitled to be in the United States on a student visa. So she could have faced some action. And I think that is why, as she is also saying, that she made a quick decision to just leave in a jiffy. She also says that, someone calling you a terrorist sympathizer and making you literally fear for your life and safety. So she also kind of thought that she had some imminent threat to her life or her safety, which could have been not from the authorities, but maybe otherwise. But yeah, she took a flight out of New York's LaGuardia Airport before the agents could come looking for her on Thursday.
And Divya, could you talk about how this approach by the Trump administration also aligns with their anti-immigrant crackdown?
So before Trump came to office, and even after in the first few executive decisions, executive orders that he signed, we see that immigration to America is the highlight of the campaign. He had said at many points that, things against green card, that green card may not be permanent and it is not your right. It doesn't entitle you to everything. Then they canceled the birthright citizenship, even though that is under contest in the court of law, since it is granted by their constitution. And he had also said that, make America great again, nation first, America first. So if we join these threads, we get a sense that it is for the domestic audience. It is also to tell them that, people from other countries who are coming here have to follow local laws, rules, ethics, even politics for that matter, and would not get the liberty to do anything in the name of freedom, and they have to adhere to some rules and regulations. So that is how it can be seen. In fact, what the pitch is that, it's a privilege to be granted a visa to live and study in the US, as Secretary Kristi Noem said after the Ranjini Srinivasan case came to light. She said that when you advocate for violence and terrorism, that privilege should be revoked and you should not be in this country. Going forward, we are going to see more such things coming into light, that you really have to fall in line if you want to be in America. Otherwise, there's no place for you. Basically, that is the broader narrative which we will see in the days to come.
And when we talk about self-deportation, can you talk about how the administration views that? Because in some sense, from the authorities' point of view, this is better, right? Because then you're not having to chase the person, you're not having to spend any resources on them. They themselves are leaving the country.
See, the self-deportation, this new feature, which was launched only on March 10, this new feature is basically, it allows you to voluntarily leave the country once you know that your legal status is to stay there is not there. So it can be used by a number of categories like undocumented migrants, even those who have had their visa revoked, like Ranjini Srinivasan's case for some reason, or who could face action. So it is just giving them one last chance to leave before they are caught. about. And it's a warning, and it is also being pitched as to them, to those who could use this feature, it is pitched to them as, if you self-deport, you still have a chance to come back. But if action is taken against you, you don't have a chance to come back. In fact, you could face consequences. From the domestic audience point of view, it is also being pitched as a move to save a lot of resources and taxpayers' money for the Americans. Because as we have seen in the last, 6, 7, 8 weeks of Trump administration, how a lot of military planes were going all over the world with migrants shackled, handcuffed, and in restraints. So that was like a big statement that was made that there is no way illegal immigrants will be tolerated. They will be made to leave the country. And so if you want to retain your freedom and you want to not face any action, you have a chance to leave. And so in that sense, it will save a lot of money and resources for the Americans, which they have to put into these military planes, charter flights, detention centers, chasing people, judicial process, judicial orders. It is just like you upload on the app that you have an intent to leave, and then you let them track you and you let them verify that you have left the country. And that's that.
Next, we talk about the CAR T-cell therapy. The clinical trial results of India's first CAR T-cell therapy, developed by a team of scientists at IIT Bombay in association with Tata Memorial Centre and ImmunoAct, has been published in the Lancet. CAR T-cell or chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy is a novel treatment method for cancer. These results came from the phase 1 and 2 trials of the therapy, where researchers assess its safety and effectiveness against a given condition. This is the first clinical trial of the CAR T-cell therapy from India to be published in an international journal. The Lancet commentary said, quote, "This is a really world-class innovation done within the country. The treatment has been found to be comparable to others approved globally, and the cost is 1/20th of those therapies. This will improve access and affordability of such high-end cancer treatments." Unquote. In this segment, we are joined by the Indian Express's Anonna Dutt, who shares more details about this treatment. Anonna, can you explain to us what is the CAR T-cell therapy?
So the therapy that we're talking about, developed by IIT offshoot startup ImmunoAct and in collaboration with, of course, Tata Memorial Hospital. This therapy right now is meant for two specific types of blood cancers, B-cell lymphoma and B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So CAR T-cell therapy is a type of cancer treatment where the patient's own immune system is taught how to fight off the cancer. So basically what the doctors do is they filter out a type of immune cell called the T cells, and then they take it, they re-engineer it in the labs to have receptors that can bind with the cancer cells. So that makes it possible for these modified T cells to detect the cancer cells and kill them. Usually the cancer cells are, because it's a type of body's own cell, right? So it doesn't get detected by the immune system. So basically the therapy uses the body's own immune system to kill the cancer.
Right, and the Lancet, which is one of the most trusted medical journals, has published the findings of its clinical trials. So can you tell us about these findings?
So the thing is, in these patients, this therapy is used only when the first line of treatment fails to respond or the cancer comes back after treatment. So this is a second line therapy meant only for patients who've, tried everything else and the cancer is not getting better. And in them, we have found a 73% response rate, with the average survival being 6 months for one type of cancer and 4 months for the other type of cancer. So basically, the main finding is that the response rate, or the percentage of the people in whom the treatment had some effect, either halted the progress of the cancer or made it better, it was found to be 73%. Now, this finding we have reported in the past, but this is now published in peer-reviewed journal. It is a very well-known international journal, Lancet Hematology. So that is an important thing, because so far the findings were there with our drug regulator, based on which the approvals were also given for using this therapy in 2023. But now the data has been published for everyone to go through.
Right. And during these trials, were any side effects discovered?
The study also spoke about what kind of side effects were seen, and there were side effects. So there was a commentary that was published with the study which pointed out that this particular complication is higher than in similar therapies that have been developed elsewhere in the world. But the incidence of one particular complication was slightly higher than other therapies. So it's a complication where once these modified T cells are given to the body, it uncontrollably, activates the immune system. So instead of giving a normal response, the response is heightened, causing hyperinflammation and organ damage. So 12% of the study participants had this complication. There were 2 treatment-related deaths that were reported in the study. One was, of course, because of this complication, and there was another one where there was a bleeding in the lungs and multi-organ failure. So these were the side effects that were reported. But of course, there were, more commonly seen side effects were something like anemia or thrombocytopenia, which is basically low platelet count, or another, blood issue where a particular type of white blood cells goes down. So these are anyway seen in, patients with these kinds of cancer. So this was also seen with the therapy.
And Anonna, you mentioned that this is the second line of therapy. So how is it different from the primary available methods of treatment?
So essentially, for any type of cancer, the 3 main therapies that are given are chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and surgeries. And it would be similar for blood cancers as well. But once those therapies fail, this particular therapy then works with the body's immune system and not like particular chemical agent given to kill the cancer cells, but instead uses the body's own immune system to kill the cancer cells.
And why are these findings significant? How will it change cancer treatment?
So these are, like I mentioned, the last line of therapy and for, very specific types of cancers. So it's not in numbers. It won't be like, it would be saving a lot of people. That's not the case. However, it is a very important technology. It is something which is now the future of cancer treatment, where you would have personalized medicine for specific types of cancers with specific mutations in the gene. So this is a very important, so to say, technology that now we have, something that has now been developed in our own country and is being manufactured in our own country by a startup which came from an IIT and is being given at of course, Tata Memorial Hospital started with it, but now I think there are other hospitals like Amrita, Max, Fortis, which are also using this therapy. So in terms of access, that's a very good thing. And as we move forward, so right now the therapy would cost about 25 to 30 lakhs plus some cost for the hospital charges and all of that. So it is an expensive therapy. Of course, this therapy has brought the price down. The therapy used to cost about 1 crore plus. Now it has come down to about 30 lakhs or so. But we have to keep at it, and so that, it becomes more accessible in the future.
And talking about accessibility, is it available now in India for regular patients to access?
So yes, after the phase 1, phase 2 trial, the study that has been published now, of course, like I mentioned, the data was previously available with the drug regulator. So it was approved for use outside of the clinical trial in 2023. And since then has been administered across several private hospitals in the country. This therapy, yes, now, people can get it at these centers. Like I mentioned, Amrita has partnered with the company. So has Max, Fortis, Apollo. So a lot of these leading hospitals have the therapy on offer now.
And in the end, we talk about one of the biggest assaults by Israel on the Gaza Strip post the ceasefire. Yesterday, Israel launched airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, killing at least 413 Palestinians, including women and children, according to hospital officials quoted by news agency AP. With no progress in the truce talks, this is one of the biggest assaults on the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire began on 19th January. The Gaza ministry also added that over 660 injured people have arrived at hospitals, with many victims of the airstrike thought to be buried under the rubble. The Red Cross said many medical facilities in the Gaza Strip were overwhelmed in the aftermath of the attacks. Tommaso Della Longa, spokesperson of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, said at a briefing in Geneva, quote, "What we heard from Palestine Crescent colleagues this morning is that many medical facilities are literally overwhelmed across Gaza." Unquote. An Israeli government statement accused Hamas of rejecting multiple ceasefire proposals. Reuters reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said, quote, "Israel will, from now on, act against Hamas with increasing military strength." Unquote. The ceasefire established in January initially saw Hamas release 33 Israeli hostages and 5 Thai nationals in exchange for about 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. However, talks over remaining 59 Israeli hostages broke down. Hamas insisted that Israel commit to a full withdrawal from Gaza, while Israel sought an extended truce without making such a concession. Hamas accused Israel of violating the agreement. News agency AP reported the group saying, quote, "We demand that the mediators hold Netanyahu and the Zionist occupation fully responsible for overturning the deal." Unquote. The White House has confirmed that it was consulted by Israel before the latter resumed its attacks against Hamas in Gaza, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. According to a report by AP, Leavitt said, quote, "The Trump administration and the White House were consulted by the Israelis on their attacks in Gaza tonight." Unquote. She further added, quote, "As President Trump has made it clear, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose." Unquote. A Gaza resident told AP that there is no safe place left for them. The bombings do not stop. The situation remains critical as international mediators struggle to find a way to restart talks. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargav and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.